So we've got Laura Carr and Elizabeth Red here. So Laura's on Bravo Showstopper. We've got a little bit of a player profile of Laura, which we'll talk a bit about afterwards, because Laura's a well-known player from Melbourne. She's one of the top 100 XP players in the world for lifetime XP. So a veteran player and a well-known Bravo Showstopper player. I think that Laura may have played Bravo Star of the Show last week, which I think was the first time I've ever seen her play a hero other than Bravo Showstopper. But she's back on Bravo Showstopper today, by the looks of things.
Which I'm super excited about. Bravo Showstopper, my favourite hero. Certainly what I started with. And we're straight into it. Elizabeth is on Prism.
And Elizabeth has been playing Prism at our local armories pretty regularly, probably for the last 2 or 3 months. And she started off here with a Merciful Retribution and a Shimmers of Silver, which is a really powerful opening. Laura's got an Anathos into probably the Merciful, I imagine.
One of the good things about playing Bravo into
the Shimmers. Okay, so we're leaving the Merciful. Laura will take one.
Okay.
Just doesn't want that Shimmers to get out of control in terms of attack damage, I guess.
Yeah.
I know you're about to say one of the things about good things about playing Bravo, but I think one of the just quickly the challenges about playing Bravo, and then you can segue into a good thing, is if they do double aura, it can be really, really hard to control that.
Yeah, really hard to control the double aura, because it's really hard to get 2 action points with Bravo Star of the Show. But
Showstopper.
Sorry, Showstopper. You're going to have to catch me on that one a couple of times today. But does have the ability to pop off a lot of these Phantasm cards.
Yeah. So we've got, looks like we've got a pause, unless Laura's holding her finger on that Merciful Retribution. But anyway, we've got a Phantasmaclasm coming in. And what Phantasmaclasm is going to allow Elizabeth to do is have a look at Laura's hand, get rid of a 6 attack potentially, or more likely, actually, I think in this matchup, a way for Laura to get another action point. Because Laura's probably going to have a surplus of 6 attack cards to pop Phantasms, but what she's not going to have, as you were saying, is enough cards to actually get her an extra action point to pop these Spectra Auras.
Yeah, one of the ways that Laura can do that with her equipment is to play Time Skippers. So, do you know the text on Time Skippers?
Yep, so 3 blue, 3 resources, a blue, destroy Time Skippers, gain an action point.
Yeah, okay. Can you do that at any stage? Like, so if you don't have an action point? It is an action.
Yeah.
So you have to do it at the start.
I believe.
Before you try to do anything.
Yeah. I mean, whether it's an action or an instant, I guess if it was an instant, it allows you to play an action point and then pop the Time Skippers unexpectedly, much like you would play Blink, but I'm pretty sure it's an action.
Yeah, okay.
So we're just trying to recover the video feed here.
We will hopefully get that. In the meantime, I want to ask you, Jesse, how do you feel about this matchup? Like, historically, Bravo, OG Bravo versus Prism?
Yep.
What's the dealio?
Historically, it's very different to what it's like now, because I think of these 0-cost auras that Prism can play. So historically, you had to manage the 4-cost auras and then the Spectral Shields. Yep. But now you have to manage the 0-cost auras and the 4-cost auras and the Spectral Shields. So you have kind of this additional threat that Prism's putting out. And what that means is that on key turns, where Prism is able to put out a 4-cost and a 0-cost, simply having something like a Zealous Belting or an Enlightened Strike to go at the Spectral Shields or threaten damage to the face and then hit an aura is not enough. You have to be able to hit not only the face to get rid of the shields, plus the Spectra afterwards with Go Again, but you also need to have ways to gain action points to try and hit 2 Spectras in one turn, which is something you didn't really have to do before.
Okay. So, made it a little bit harder. We're back now. We see that Laura's on 29 to Elizabeth on 39.
Yep.
So, pretty far behind for Laura. And more importantly, there is still like 1 aura on the field.
Yeah, and not only 1 aura, but 1 Merciful Retribution, which is probably the most powerful aura. Because it's allowing Elizabeth to threaten additional damage whenever another of her 0-cost or 4-cost auras or non-token auras is destroyed. And if it's combined with something like Ode to Wrath, which doubles damage from illusionist sources, then it threatens to pretty much take the game away from Laura. So Merciful Retribution has to be dealt with before it can lock in with an Ode to Wrath to threaten that large amount of damage. Merciful Retribution did also have, and we just seen another double aura turn there from Elizabeth, so Genesis and Passing Mirage coming down. It looks like that was on Elizabeth's turn though, because Laura's kept a full grip here. So Elizabeth's basically saying, I'm happy to pitch up my whole hand, not strip any cards from your hand on my turn, knowing that I'm presenting 2 Spectres, which is really hard for you to deal with. So I'm happy for you to have your 4-card hand.
So Time Skipper's been popped off here to get the extra action point as stage 1 of the turn.
And then if Laura can hit the 2 4-cost auras here, then that's good. But the thing is, in addition to having the extra action point, she also has to have 2 things to attack with. So Anathos can obviously only attack once.
Yep.
Which then means she has to have another attack she can play from hand with her remaining 2 cards.
And
so off a 4-card hand,
got to be hard, because a lot of Bravo's attacks, like the whole dealio with Bravo is, I'm gonna play one big attack and I'm gonna come in and hopefully try to crush you.
Yep. And Spectra just breaks that up beautifully. But yeah, so the challenge for Laura here is, are those 2 cards remaining in her hand a blue and then a 3-cost attack?
We've got to assume that that's the case.
So I will also should point out here, Elizabeth just played a second Merciful, which is just a massive blowout. So on Elizabeth's turn, she played the Genesis and the Passing Mirage. Then she's drawn up at the end of her turn and drawn the resources to play another Merciful.
Okay.
Which means that when Laura's gone to pop the Genesis, Laura's actually taken 2 damage from double Merciful. And then Laura's now coming in with a Crush Confidence, so she did have a 3-cost attack and the blue Cranial Crush and the Pitch. To try and destroy one of those Mercifuls. Oh no, Laura's going face with that one. Okay, so she's ignoring the Mercifuls. She's just saying, I'm going to try... I'm pretty far behind on the board here. I think my best chance is to try and push damage through, which is a perfectly reasonable decision to make.
Yeah.
She had a red Crush Confidence there. It gives her an opportunity to try and start the race. I mean, racing against 2 Mercifuls is really hard. Like, it's 2 arcane damage, but it's 2 arcane damage also whenever Prism's shields get destroyed. Like, that's the hard thing.
So Spectral Shields are going to be a real painful affair. Like,
they're a real pain.
Prevent 1, deal 2, is that what they read now?
They read Prevent 1, deal 2, and the challenge for Laura is going to be stopping Elizabeth getting more cards in Soul to generate Spectral Shields.
Okay.
And putting out enough damage and hopefully impactful crush effects to disrupt Elizabeth's turn sufficiently. Which, yeah, I really think that Laura's made the right call there. She'd popped her Time Skippers, she'd controlled the Genesis, which in combination with the Mercifuls gets out of control, because that's a free Spectral Shield every turn.
Yeah.
You can't let that live. But now she's saying, okay, you've got 2 things that are benefiting you when I'm killing your auras, and I'm already starting behind because I'm Bravo Showstopper. I'm just going to leave that be and try and play to my strengths, which is hitting your face.
Yeah. So we're going to coming in with a Spinal Crush here. So that's going to be Dominate, 9 power, and if it deals 4 or more damage, then Elizabeth is going to lose and can't gain go again for the turn. So that means that Elizabeth will only be able to make 1 attack with one of those auras, or a card from hand, which is pretty powerful. A lot of equipment left to block with on Elizabeth's side. So what do you reckon the chances are of being able to block this out?
Well, she can't block with the Footsteps because the Footsteps would die. Dreamweavers doesn't block, and it's just the Tunic. So plus the Skullcap she's put in. So Elizabeth's committed her Skullcap. I think rightly, as you say, that was a worthwhile equipment block. And then I'm not sure whether she blocked with that Phantasmaclasm that's now gone down there. Yeah, looks like it. Yep. So I think that was block for 5. Was it block for 4 because Laura was behind on life? Yeah,
Laura's behind on life. So and it looks like it came in for maybe 5 damage from 37 to 32. 35, 33, 32.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there with the blocks.
Okay. We'll have to go back over that a little bit later, maybe. But
and Ode to Wrath coming down, which is what we mentioned earlier. So this, in combination now with the 2 Mercifuls, means that everything is threatening 1 damage, and those Spectral Shields dying is now threatening 4 damage for every Spectral Shield that dies, because it'll be 1 ping for each Merciful, and each of those pings will be doubled.
Yep. Okay.
And Laura not rocking Null Rune here, so no way to prevent that arcane damage, which is going to make this really challenging. So if that Crater Fist was a Null Rune Gloves now, then Laura would actually have the capacity to control the pings that come in from the Spectral Shields here on this plan. But now she's pretty much got a race, and her her equipment, being Crater Fist, Tectonic Plating, and the Skull Cap, is going to help if Elizabeth does throw Herald back the other way.
Yep.
But it's not going to help against the arcane damage.
Okay.
It is also going to help against these pokes. So if Laura's just going to allow Elizabeth to have one poke per turn from an aura,
Yep.
Laura's got 6 or 7 turns worth of block on her armor, on the aura pokes, but not so much on the Spectral Shield arcane when they pop.
Yeah. So Laura's really hoping to not get a lot of Spectral Shields coming out the other side.
That's right. So we're seeing here a Tear Asunder into a Debilitate. So Debilitate going to hamper the next attack that Elizabeth makes if it crushes. So that's another turn where if Elizabeth's throwing those auras back the other way as attacks, the first one's going to be weak against that Debilitate, but we've seen the Unmovable. So
Unmovable.
That's really unfortunate for Laura. She had a really nice hand with the 2 blues to play the Tear Asunder and the Debilitate.
Yep.
With Tear Asunder giving the Debilitate Dominate. Powerful. It's going to strip cards from hand if it hits and have a crush effect. So it was a really good, really strong play. But unfortunately, Elizabeth having the Unmovable to counter the Dominate there.
Yeah, that was a brutal Unmovable.
Very brutal. And now, as we saw, as we expected, a Herald coming back the other way. And importantly for Elizabeth, pitching a yellow, it is a War Tune, so a 1-cost Herald, which is rightly the Herald that a lot of these Aura decks are playing exactly for this reason. Because that 1 floating resource, War Tune costing 1 rather than 2, means that if Laura pops the War Tune, then Elizabeth can pay 1 to the footsteps to get her action point back. Whereas all the other Heralds that cost 2, she wouldn't be able to do that. So War Tune operating perfectly. Laura doesn't pop it, and this means Elizabeth can then come in with all of her auras.
And they're all ping for 2.
And they're all attacking for 2 effectively.
Yeah.
1, but it becomes 2 if it hits.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, swiftly getting out of control for Laura. Elizabeth has got to be feeling pretty confident at this point.
That last turn was a really big pivot attempt from Laura, and that Unmovable, not only did Elizabeth have a blue and an Unmovable, she then had a yellow and a War Tune Herald to follow it up with coming back the other way. So it was
a great hand.
About the perfect 4-card hand to combat what Laura was trying to do there.
Yeah, that was the attempt at a pivot, and I think if Laura managed to get that off, because the Tear Asunder would have taken 2 cards out of hand.
Yeah.
And then the Debilitate would have
Neutered the first
attack.
Yep.
And so could have kept that kind of tempo going to maybe next turn come in with either a Spinal Crush or a Crippling Crush. Mm-hmm. And basically try to keep the pressure on in terms of keeping cards out of hand. Because I think the only way that Laura gets back in this game is if Elizabeth doesn't have a yellow to pitch.
Yes.
Which would mean that all of the auras that are coming in for 1 and then 2 wouldn't have go again.
Yeah. So Laura's just killed the Ode to Wrath, importantly there, recognizing that things coming in for 2 is just too much to handle.
Too much.
And now we've got a Miraging Metamorph, which, in terms of Everfest cards that have changed this matchup, and changed every matchup for Prism, I think this is the most powerful Prism card to come out of Everfest. It's a really powerful benefit that Prism gets if it's popped. They get to copy one of their auras that's in play.
So popped means that if your opponent blocks with a 6 power or more, it basically just gets destroyed.
That's right. The Phantasm ability triggers and the attack gets destroyed and doesn't occur. And historically, double Miraging Metamorph, I mean, that is just... So if you're on the Bravo side of these matchups, particularly when there are relevant auras in play, or when the Prism has cards in hand that could become auras at instant speed, you kind of treat the Miraging Metamorphs as I kind of have to take those. I might be able to block with some equipment, but I'm just going to factor in that I'm taking 7 once or twice in the game. Taking 7 twice in one turn, though, is just brutal. So Laura's blocking, I think, for 6 here, taking 1. Going to 12... Yeah, so I've realised Elizabeth's tracking Laura's life on the left.
Yeah. That's what we've done. Yeah, I've just worked that out as well.
So we've got a Spectral Shield coming in here off Prism's ability. Laura's blocking twice with equipment. So what we were saying was if Laura could restrict Elizabeth's action points and her attacks enough, then we might see one of those equipment blocks each turn, which could buy Laura a few turns. But we've just seen 3 this turn, and I think we saw 2 or 3 last turn. So the equipment's very quickly drying up, and Laura's running out of opportunities here to try and pivot. So I think she's got a 5-card hand, or a 3-card hand now left. Yeah, it's a Spinal Crush. So if this was a Crippling Crush, this turn, and Laura could have perhaps kept 1 or 2 more cards back if those metamorphs hadn't come out, this would have been strong. If she'd been able to keep that pummel that she blocked with, this could have been strong. But as it is, a vanilla Spinal at this point with this board state and these life totals is probably not going to be enough.
And Red Unmovable coming out to just say, no crush for you. I'm going to keep my go again. I'm going to keep my cards in hand. I'm going to keep one
coming
of
at you.
these yellows to pitch.
I can see a Crippling Crush in Laura's hand now, so it'll be interesting to see what Elizabeth's got here. So it's pitch a yellow, make an aura, make a shield, and then come in. So Elizabeth's just pointing out that the Creative Fist got 2 counters, so it's dead. So there's going to be 4 attacks here, but that's likely it from Elizabeth. I mean, Elizabeth does have a Tunic resource and 1 card in hand, so it could be a War Tune at the end of the chain, but it looks like it's probably going to be an Arsenal.
Yeah, Arsenal, which could be an unmovable. Yeah, one of the things that Prism has done is increase the number of defense reactions in response to Bravo Star of the Show.
Yes.
Which has some splash damage on to Showstopper as well.
Absolutely. So here's that Crippling Crush that we talked about. So this is Laura's last gasp attempt. She's gone to 5, kept the 4-card hand so that she can Crippling. She's pitched a red Command and Conquer there, so not enough resources to activate Showstopper, so this won't have Dominate. But remembering that Spectral Shield being destroyed is going to deal Laura 2 damage. And then Elizabeth's going to be able to use Prism's ability to deal another 2 damage by making another Spectral Shield here to quote-unquote block. So Laura's going to 1, which means that after this attack, Laura can only kill 1 more Spectral Shield for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and being on 23 here, Elizabeth being on 23.
The maths gets pretty hard for Laura to be able to close out the game without dying to the Mercifuls. I mean, Laura can't even kill the Mercifuls at that point, because when they die, they deal a damage. So it's it's a hard lock.
Yeah. Okay, we didn't see an activation of.
So the Merciful triggers go on the stack. We didn't see Prism get activated. We saw the blocks instead to maintain the life total.
We got a counter on Tunic, pitch, make a Spectral Shield, and come in for 4 pings.
Yeah, which, I mean, obviously, Laura's in a very tough spot here and really can't afford to take any damage, but this does open up the tiniest of outs where, because she's on 3, she can, in the next 2 turns, block everything, keep a blue, and kill the Mercifuls.
But like when you kill 1 Merciful, it still deals damage.
It's going to deal 2. Yeah. So the first one's going to deal 2, the second one's going to deal 1. Yeah. So three's the death zone. Yeah.
Yeah. I think. I think we're in the end stages here. You can see one of my favorite things to watch in Flesh and Blood is to see when heroes try to pivot, and particularly when they successfully pivot, and then some of my favorite matches to watch is when there's multiple pivots in the game, and Elizabeth shutting down that attempted pivot with the unmovable and just saying, nope, I'm not going to get Spinal Crushed. I'm not going to get
Debilitate with Terra Sunder.
I'm just gonna maintain control. That I've got control. And those auras just basically came into play really early. Like, was it turn 1 that we saw?
We saw double aura turn 1. Yeah. So Laura had an unmovable, 2 unmovables in hand, which meant she couldn't even cover up with blocks there. So that's the game. So bad luck to Laura. Well played to Elizabeth with maintaining that tempo and the, as you say, the capacity to control the game each turn, to actually really output her maximum damage pretty much each turn with her board state, and not to allow the crushes to really come into play at all. Yeah, well played, Elizabeth. Maybe we'll get Elizabeth in to see, get her take on winning round 1 of the Pro Quest. And Laura's going to be hoping to submarine. Do you know that term, Jesse? Submarine? Absolutely. Tell our viewers about being a submarine in a tournament.
The idea with the submarine is that you go underwater to start with, but then you come back up. So start with the 0-1 and then come back all the way up to making the top 8, which I think is very doable. Very doable, and Laura no stranger to making top 8, so I'm sure that she'll have that in her sights. So I think we've got a little player profile on Laura here that we might just talk through quickly.
Oh no, we haven't got that ready. That's all right. Now we might just take a quick break. We'll see if we can get Elizabeth to come in and have a quick chat to us about winning round 1, and we'll see you in a moment.
See you in a moment.
Hopefully better this time. And so how did the game feel? We were talking through the Showstopper v Prism matchup, and that it's got a lot more challenging for Showstopper with MFS release. What are your thoughts?
Well, especially Laura's plan, because I was the main Prism she'd play against, was she would try and just like tank and smash my auras. But now there's 27 and not 15. 15 is a lot easier to break through.
Mm-hmm.
So she was just trying to go aggro, and I went first. I went aura.
Yep.
And that's mean to old Bravo.
Yep.
Because they can't just go big smash, attack aura, like Starvo.
Yes, and so you had, was it Merciful and Passing Mirage on turn 1? Yeah, and that's a pretty good start in terms of those two.
Mm.
Getting rid of Phantasm against Bravo is mean.
Mm.
And having Merciful in play, which is probably your biggest threat.
Yeah, it's Merciful, because no Arcane Barrier. She took like what, 9 or 10 damage I think for the game, maybe a little more, just from Arcane, because no Arcane Barrier.
Yep.
Because it's 2 armor and then time skippers.
And then you had the second Merciful on the turn, I think, where Laura killed the Genesis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you had 2 Mercifuls and an Ode to Wrath in play. I think anytime you get to that board state as Prism, you probably feel pretty good.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage that it's hard to deal with.
And so talk us through how you've changed your deck in the last few weeks since MFS been released.
I've had to, well, like most Prisms, just added 12 auras and Metamorph. And that's about it. The other cards, when there's a new Prism, like new Illusionist, great cards. Prism, it doesn't go to Soul.
Sorry, say again.
Like, the cards, they're great for a newer Illusionist, whenever that happens, but they don't go to Soul.
Yes,
the attacks.
The attacks, yeah.
But yeah, and with Salvo, it's just put more defense reactions in, which is unmovable, basically. And then having to deal with Prism. Like, I've got Lead the Charge in my sideboard now because...
For the mirror match?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because Lead the Charge, yellow, and attack, and I can smack 2 auras. Or Lead the Charge, blue. Yeah, so it's like Starvo, Prism, and Viscerai is just hope I race better.
Yep.
And those are the big 3, I believe.
Yeah, and what are your, in that Viscerai race, what are your tools that you're kind of leaning on most in that matchup?
I've
got...
your
Heralds, or...?
Yeah, I'm a more aggro build. Like, I've got the 6 red 1 for 7s. Phantasmaclasms, which moving away like a Mordred or Sonata is pretty mean. And yeah, I just try to throw Heralds, because anyone who has a one cost attack that has lots of gold again, there's no point playing even Genesis, because that has to be on their turn to be good anything.
Yes.
Because they just go attack, 15 damage, and then poke.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I either take my damage and then dump an aura, you just poke, or I just try to throw 1 for 7 off Tunic sometimes.
And you've got those 9 War Tune Heralds, is that right? Yeah. Are you playing the blues, the reds, and the yellows?
Yeah.
So having all those 1 costs...
And then Metamorph,
Yeah, if things are popped. Yeah. Because you've then, if you pitched a yellow, you got the floating resource to the footsteps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also means just off Tunic, I can just, if I dump my hand, I can be like, just play 1. I don't really care for pops, because that's my turn.
And one of the interesting things about Prism in this latest iteration, in the latest metagame, is going away from Vestige of Soul, which obviously presented a bit more threat for the Heralds. If they hit, you get an extra bonus, but instead you've got Tunic. How have you found that that shift?
Much more freeing. Like, I'm not forced to play just light Illusionist cards, and Vestige doesn't really work when 12 of your blues are not light cards.
Yes.
And Vestige really worked with blue light cards, because it means that pitch a blue light card when Vestige is active, you can play a 4-cost aura. 12, like, I'm playing a lot less blues than everyone else, that I've seen. I'm playing 15, which is the 12 auras and 3 War Tunes.
Yes.
And
so
Vestige
really
is not going to work.
3 blues that it works with.
Yeah, and Tunic's, like, I can pitch a blue Tunic, play a 4-cost.
Yep.
Which is much more reliable.
You get that reliably every 3 turns rather than
and I don't need
sometimes.
to make a soul. I don't need, like, to prep the Vestige.
And it also, I guess, frees up a lot of deck space, because you don't have to play, or you don't have to. You never had to play Tome of Divinity and Herald and things like that and lean into that. But you don't have to rely on those things to have your big turns anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
You've got more reliable game plan.
Yeah, it's trying to be more consistent, whilst everyone else is trying to be just, do I get a really good hand?
Yeah. And
do I get my really good hand when they're trying to get theirs and I stop theirs?
Yep.
Which is why the main one I'm scared about is Dash, because they're consistent.
Yep.
And Prism just tries to disrupt the high rolls, and you can't really do that against consistency. Like 3x4 attack with the gun, plus whatever boosting, consistently is bad.
Yeah.
It's very hard to deal with, even with a bunch of auras.
Very cool. Well, thanks for stopping by, Elizabeth, and we'll let you get a bit of a mental break before your next round.
Cool.
And good luck for the rest.
Thank you.
No worries. All right, so that was interesting, Isaac. A lot of sort of similar things to what we were discussing there in the commentary, but good to hear that Elizabeth was on the same page whilst she was playing through the game.
Yeah. It's cool to get the winner in for a quick little interview. Like, I'm really liking that Jay from Grand J Games has set it up to be able to stream today, to be able to talk to the viewers. Interested to get some feedback from chat. So, chat, if you've got any questions about the match that we played or about Flesh and Blood in general, really keen to hear that. So jump in there, give us some interaction, and we'll be able to answer some questions.
Absolutely. We've got a hello. That's a good start. So thanks for jumping in, chat. Get us any questions, any thoughts on the games as we go through. We should have round 2, probably another 20 minutes or so, I think, till we get to round 2. Have we got that Laura profile ready to go? We'll just have a quick chat about one of our players. So we've had a chat to Elizabeth, and this was Laura, who was on Bravo Showstopper there. So as I mentioned before round 1 started, Laura's in the top 100 players worldwide for current lifetime XP ranking. So that's second from the bottom there. You can see she's got 1,364 lifetime XP, which puts her 87th in the world for lifetime XP.
That is really impressive.
It's very impressive. So Laura's played a lot of Flesh and Blood and won a lot of games with Bravo Showstopper.
I've played against Laura once in like a calling event, on the side event of Nationals.
Yep.
And sat down against her, and she was actually a super nice person.
Mm-hmm.
But she kind of casually was like, "Oh, I'm not sure if my deck's that good," and then crushed me. Like, absolutely crushed me. Wasn't even close. Like, it was actually it was quite good to be crushed by someone who's that nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Humbling experience. And it makes sense because Laura's favourite card, of course, is Crippling Crush. So.
Oh yeah, good point. Good point.
So Laura's been playing Fab since it was released. Hero she's playing today is Bravo Showstopper, and as expected, favourite hero is Bravo Showstopper.
My favourite hero is also Bravo Showstopper.
Okay.
And my favourite card is also Crippling Crush. So
great minds think alike.
yeah. I mean, I just love Crippling Crush as a card that's like 11 power, which, like, when you first start playing Flesh and Blood, you're like, oh, this card is broken, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, it's busted. Now, the card is great, but it turns out 7 resources to play the card is a lot of resources. Yeah. And they can just block it out. But if you've got Dominate, if you manage to give it Dominate in some way, then Crippling Crush is just the bee's knees.
Or if you got a cheeky pummel in Arsenal and you pitch 3 blues.
Yeah, cheeky pummel.
Yes, and Laura's... so what I guess the other thing we should mention is, on the reason we've asked players for their lifetime XP ranking, is that the other road to the Pro Tour is that as of, I think it's the 23rd of March or thereabouts, the top 100 ranked players on lifetime and 90-day XP, 100 each, will get an invite to the Pro Tour. So Laura's currently sitting 87th in the world, which is inside the top 100 for lifetime XP. So she's currently in the zone to get an invite.
Is it top 100 or top 90?
Top 100.
Top 100?
Yep.
Okay.
100 for lifetime XP and 100 for 90-day XP.
So she's even got a bit of wiggle room.
She does, but as we know, there's a weekend of ProQuest this weekend. Yep. ProQuests are 6 times XP events, so each win gets you 6 XP. So Laura will be looking to rack up a few XP to keep up, because if all the other players around her are playing a ProQuest this weekend as well, or maybe 2, then they are also going to be picking up a reasonable number of XP from those ProQuest.
Is there a calling, right, before the cutoff?
Good question. There's the calling Indianapolis, and I'm going to need to check the dates on that before we finalise. But it's possible. Yeah.
Okay, because that would be a source of water points. Yeah.
That would be brutal for non-American players.
Quite good for American players.
Yeah. But yeah, Laura's currently sitting in the zone where she's going to get an invite, which is great.
Yeah, awesome. So she's, obviously hoping to top 8 today and snag the win.
Mm-hmm.
But really, any win throughout the entire tournament is...
Any match win is good.
Yeah, yeah. So even if out of contention for top 8, she's going to be sticking around.
Oh, yeah.
And just trying to farm some points today as well.
Absolutely. Just as Laura did at Nats with ELO. Because the other rating system in Flesh and Blood is an ELO rating, like chess ELO.
Mm-hmm.
But ELO rating is only given out at nationals or higher.
Yep.
So your matches at even ProQuest like this don't count towards your ELO rating, so there's no disincentive for high-rated players to play these events, which is great, because they're not risking any ELO. But Laura at Nationals was in that situation. She didn't look like she was going to make top 8, but she continued playing all her rounds to keep getting that ELO rating and keep grinding away. So I'm sure that Laura will be there, regardless of her record, in the last round today, bashing out for those last 6 XP.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, we'll take a break now, and we'll come back with round 2 very shortly.